Millionaire saw a poor single mom returning her daughter's milk. What he did next shocked everyone. The early winter rain in Portland fell like a gray curtain, draping the entire city and leaving cold puddles along the sidewalks. Elena Ramirez pulled her thin jacket tighter around her body, holding Mia's small hand with the other. The 3-year-old was coughing, soft but deep coughs that made her chest rise and fall in uneven waves, as if she were trying to hide an unnamed pain. They stepped into the Brightmart grocery store, where the pale neon lights washed over Elena's exhausted face. She had barely 10 minutes before she needed to catch the bus to the nursing home where she worked night shifts as a caregiver. In her hand was a rushed list: cough syrup, nutritional milk, bread, and some soft fruit for Mia. Elena tried to keep everything within the tiny amount left in her wallet, an amount so small it felt less like a budget and more like a quiet warning that life could collapse at any moment. The checkout line was unusually long. Mia sniffled and clung tighter to her hand, her sleepy eyes filled with unease. Elena smoothed the little girl's hair, whispering comfort, though she herself was struggling to stay composed. When it was finally her turn, she placed each item on the conveyor belt, hoping the total wouldn't betray her careful calculations. But luck had never been a friend to Elena. The total came out to $11.75 more than she had. A small amount to some, but large enough to thrust her into humiliation. She searched her wallet again, checking every pocket, praying she had missed a few coins. Nothing. Her palms grew cold. Behind her, a few people sighed. A woman muttered loudly enough for Elena to hear, "There's always someone who can't pay, always at the worst possible time." Elena felt her face flush. She swallowed a familiar ache of shame. And then, from somewhere behind her in line, a steady, calm male voice spoke. "I can cover the difference." Elena looked up. He was tall, neatly dressed, his expression composed yet carrying something deeper, something like recognition or empathy. She didn't know who he was, but she knew every pair of eyes around them was watching, and that alone made her shake her head quickly. "No, I can handle it." Her voice quivered, not out of anger, but because the fragile pride she had held on to for years felt suddenly exposed. The man, Ethan Calloway, paused for a moment, then nodded without insisting. But his gaze drifted to Mia, who was coughing again. The sound hit him like a blow, cracking open a memory he had tried desperately to bury. Elena reluctantly put back the nutritional milk, the most important item. She apologized to the cashier, gathered Mia into her arms, and hurried into the rain. The cold air slapped against their faces. Elena felt as though the world had rejected her once more. Behind the glass doors, Ethan watched them leave. He didn't know Elena's name, nor her story, but Mia's cough echoed in his mind, just like the last sound he had ever heard from his late wife. The next morning, Portland was still wrapped in the cool, misty air of late autumn. Elena walked briskly along the sidewalk, her worn-out shoes clicking softly against the pavement. In her hand was a cheap cup of coffee and a small lunchbox she had prepared the night before. Mia stayed at the free childcare room inside the Hawthorne Community Center, where Elena worked part-time as a custodian. The smell of disinfectant and the hum of vacuum cleaners were familiar, but today everything felt heavier. The incident at the grocery store replayed endlessly in her mind, those pitying glances, the whispered comments, and the man she had refused, not because she was prideful, but because she couldn't bear the idea of being a burden in someone else's eyes. While wiping the large window near the lobby, Elena heard children laughing from the activity room. Mia's giggles mixed with another little girl's voice. Elena allowed herself a small smile. At least Mia still had moments of joy. But when she turned around, that smile vanished. At the end of the hallway, speaking with the center's director, stood the man from yesterday, Ethan Calloway. Elena froze. Her heart tightened as if gripped by an invisible hand. She glanced around, searching for an escape, but it was too late. The director waved her over. "Elena, come here for a moment. I want to introduce you to the main sponsor of our nutrition and childcare program this year." Elena forced a polite smile, gripping the mop handle. Ethan turned, and his eyes recognized her instantly. Surprised, yes, but not in a way that made things awkward. There was a quiet warmth in his expression. "We meet again," he said softly, genuinely. Elena bowed her head. "Yes, I'm sorry about yesterday. I shouldn't have reacted like that." Ethan shook his head right away. "No apology needed. I understand. I really only meant to help, not make you uncomfortable." Before Elena could respond, Lily, Ethan's daughter, ran out of the activity room holding Mia's hand. The two girls giggled together as if they had known each other for years. "Daddy, Mia draws so pretty. She taught me how to color this princess." Lily beamed. Elena caught the sparkle in Mia's eyes, pure bright joy that softened her heart. Ethan knelt down to ruffle Lily's hair, then looked at Mia. Something flickered in his gaze, a familiar worry. Mia's cough from the night before was still haunting him. "Is she all right?" he asked quietly. Elena looked away. "She just has a cold. The weather makes her sick easily." But Ethan saw through the thin layer of reassurance. He knew that kind of fear too well. His visit lasted longer than planned as he reviewed the programs he funded, speaking with staff, evaluating nutrition initiatives for local children. Elena kept trying to avoid him. She didn't want gratitude or discomfort to trap her again. But her efforts failed when Ethan approached her before leaving. "Elena," he said gently, "if your daughter ever needs anything, you can tell me. She cut him off immediately. "I don't want any more charity, not because I'm proud, but because it breaks me to feel like I can't stand on my own." Her voice wasn't loud, but sharp, like a blade. Ethan stepped back half a pace, not out of hurt, but out of understanding. Her fear was deeper than he expected. "I'm not pitying you," he replied quietly. "I just noticed something I can't ignore." Elena didn't ask what he meant, but he was already looking toward Mia, just as the little girl released another cough, small but dry and deep. Ethan's hand tightened into a fist. That sound struck him like a fracture inside an old memory. Elena didn't know it, but Ethan had already begun worrying about Mia in a way he couldn't fully explain. That night, Portland felt wrapped in the cold blanket of early winter winds, streetlights stretching long reflections across the wet pavement. Ethan sat alone in his office on the top floor of Callaway Innovations. The vast building was so quiet that only the distant hum of servers and the steady tapping of rain on the glass could be heard. He couldn't focus on a single report or prototype. His mind kept replaying one moment. Mia's cough inside the community center. That sound pierced through every wall he had built since his wife's death. Ethan opened his laptop and searched for Elena Ramirez. He didn't intend to invade her privacy, but the unease in his chest refused to settle. Within seconds, he stumbled upon her fundraising page, a small campaign titled, "Help Mia Breathe Easier." He clicked. Mia's picture appeared, round cheeks, dark bright eyes filled with life, yet shadowed by exhaustion. The description beneath the image froze him in place. Mia has a rare connective tissue disorder that weakens her lungs. Doctors say she needs a specialized surgery before her condition becomes dangerous. Ethan stopped breathing for a moment. It was the same illness that took Sophia, his late wife. His hands trembled slightly as he scrolled down to the donation bar. The numbers appeared. $3,180 raised with a goal of $45,000. Too little, too slow, too late without intervention. Ethan leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. Images of Sophia in her final days flooded him. Her coughs, her fractured breaths, the desperate look in her eyes he never forgot. He had promised himself that if anyone else in the world suffered from her illness, he would not let them face the same hopeless fate. And now a 3-year-old child carried that same burden. Without hesitating further, Ethan accessed the company's philanthropy fund, money reserved for medical emergencies and health research. He transferred $42,000 anonymously, enough to complete the goal. But he didn't anticipate that this act would trigger a cascade of unintended consequences. 15 minutes later, Elena's phone buzzed during her short break at the nursing home. She glanced at the screen and saw a notification from her bank. $142,000. USD, Northwest Health Relief Fund. Her hand covered her mouth. Her heart pounded wildly. Someone had helped her, helped Mia, more than she ever dared hope for. But the shock barely settled before a second notification appeared. Your account has been frozen due to suspicious activity. Elena went still. A frozen account meant every cent she had saved, rent money, Mia's medication, food, was suddenly inaccessible. Panic swallowed her. She called the bank, but the automated message told her the review process could take 24 to 48 hours. Elena bit her lip until she tasted blood. She couldn't wait that long. Mia needed daily medication. Rent was due. She knew exactly where to go. She looked back at the screen, at the name of the fund that had transferred the money. Northwest Health Relief Fund. Her brows knitted together. She had never heard that name before. Elena opened Google and typed it in. Dozens of articles appeared instantly. Callaway Innovations continues funding for the Northwest Health Relief Fund. Medical Relief Fund backed by Ethan Callaway. Elena had only reached the word Callaway when her whole body went cold. Ethan, him. It was all him. Shock, shame, anger, gratitude, hurt. Every emotion crashed into her at once like waves breaking against the shore. Pulling her thin coat tight, Elena ran out of the nursing home and into the freezing rain. She caught the last bus toward downtown, where the towering glass headquarters of Callaway Innovations rose like a fortress. Drenched from head to toe, eyes red but burning with determination, Elena marched into the lobby. She spoke to the receptionist, her voice strained but unwavering. I need to see Ethan Callaway. Now. Rainwater still streamed from her hair down her coat as she stood inside the elevator rising to the 32nd floor. Her heart pounded, not from fear, but from anger. If that man, Ethan, was responsible for her account being frozen, then he needed to hear exactly what he had done. The elevator doors slid open to reveal a long corridor lit with sterile white light. The receptionist had called ahead, so when Elena stepped into Ethan's spacious office, he was already waiting. He didn't look shocked, only worried. Elena? He took a step forward. What happened? What did you do to my bank account? Her voice was as cold and sharp as the glass walls behind him. Ethan frowned. Your account? I didn't. Don't deny it. Elena thrust her phone forward, the bank notification glowing on the screen. A suspicious transaction froze my entire account, a transaction of $42,000. Where would that come from? From what fund? From you, right? The room fell silent. Ethan didn't look at the phone. He looked at Elena, and the pain in her eyes made something inside him twist. He exhaled slowly. Yes, I sent it, but I only... You ruined my life, Elena burst out, her voice cracking. Do you know what happens when someone poor suddenly receives a huge amount of money? The bank flags it. They freeze everything. I can't withdraw a cent. I can't buy Mia's medication. I can't pay rent. Do you think I wanted your pity? Ethan was quiet a moment. Then he spoke gently. I didn't pity you. I was afraid. For your daughter. Elena froze, but anger kept her standing firm. Ethan stepped closer. Mia's illness. My wife died from it. I know how terrifying it is. I know the helplessness of watching someone you love struggle to breathe. I just wanted to help." She cut him off. "You don't get to interfere in my life." Ethan's hands tightened slightly. He could have defended himself, but he didn't. Instead, his voice softened, as if he were exposing an old wound. "When I heard her cough, it was the same sound Sophia made. I couldn't ignore it." For the first time, Elena saw real pain in the eyes of a man she had assumed lived untouched by struggle. But the fear for Mia, the financial pressure, and her battered pride kept her from yielding. He drew a slow breath, gathering himself. "Elena, if you're willing, I want to convert that transfer into a formal loan with a clear contract, signed openly. No charity, no anonymity. You'll pay it back when you can. I only want Mia to get the treatment she needs." Elena froze. Her anger didn't vanish, but it softened, its edges dulled by the unexpected respect in his proposal. "You really want to make it a loan?" she whispered. "Yes," Ethan said, sincerity steady in his eyes. "Because I know you don't want anyone's pity. And I respect that." For the first time during their confrontation, Elena lowered her gaze not out of shame, but because she felt something genuine in his words, free of pressure, free of condescension. "Tonight," Ethan said quietly, "we'll complete all the paperwork properly." Elena exhaled, heavy yet relieved. "All right, I agree. To borrow." Those words shifted everything. In the vast office, the tension slowly dissolved, like morning fog, and between two people who had every reason to distrust each other, a fragile thread of understanding quietly began to form. The loan agreement was signed that very night in a small conference room inside Callaway Innovations. Elena's hands trembled as she signed, not from fear but from the unfamiliar feeling of being treated seriously, as an equal, by someone like Ethan. He said nothing, letting her dictate every term of the contract. When everything was finalized, Elena bowed slightly, thanked him, and left the building. She had no idea that this night marked the boundary between her former life and the storm about to break. The next morning, Elena brought Mia to the children's hospital to see a specialist, a service they could finally afford without trembling over rent or utility bills. The morning sunlight fell across Elena's worn shoes, the same pair that had carried her for 2 years, scuffed at the toes and patched more times than she could remember. But she still held her head high. Her daughter was finally receiving treatment. For Elena, that was everything. In the hospital parking lot, Ethan sat in his black SUV, quietly watching the mother and daughter from a distance, making sure they arrived safely before starting the engine to leave. He didn't approach them. Elena had drawn a clear boundary, and this time he would respect it. But when he saw Mia skipping beside her mother, still fragile, yet her eyes brimming with life, something inside Ethan's chest, something that had died the day Sophia passed away, stirred gently. A spark. Hope. Not for himself, but for them. And for Ethan Callaway, that alone was enough to keep him moving forward. 6 weeks passed, and Mia's improvement felt almost like a small miracle in Elena's life. The new treatment plan worked far beyond the cautious expectations the doctors had warned her about. The cough that had tormented the little girl for months disappeared. Energy returned to her steps, to every soft giggle that echoed across the playground. Each time Elena saw her daughter blending in with the other children, she had to turn away for a moment to wipe her eyes. Not out of fear anymore, but out of a gratitude so deep it nearly broke her. The doctors remained professionally cautious, but their voices brightened every time they reviewed the results. "She's responding very well. Her numbers are climbing. Very encouraging progress." Ethan still visited the hospital regularly, using excuses like reviewing expense reports or checking loan documentation. But Elena knew those were just thin veils. The only thing keeping him in that cold hallway was the chance to see Mia getting stronger each day. and Lily clung to Mia as if they were truly sisters. She insisted on calling the little girl Little Sister. And as the days went by, despite the careful distance Elena had built around herself, she realized her heart was softening toward Ethan. Keeping her distance had been something she reminded herself of every morning. But Ethan had never crossed a boundary, never once taken advantage of their vulnerability. His legal team sent a clear, straightforward loan contract with no hidden clauses. Their conversations were honest, free of pity. What was growing between them wasn't impulsive affection. It was something quieter, steadier, a cautious trust, almost a rare kind of friendship. But peace is something life rarely lets anyone keep for long. And everything began with a photograph. Elena was cleaning the activity room at the community center when a coworker burst in, looking as if she'd seen a ghost. "Elena, you need to see this." She shoved her phone forward. On the tabloid site, City Buzz, the headline screamed, "Billionaire CEO secretly supporting and dating struggling single mother, Ethan Callaway spotted at Children's Hospital with mystery woman." Below it was a side-angle photo. Elena holding Mia outside the Children's Hospital, Ethan standing beside them. From the angle, it looked like an intimate moment. Elena felt the floor disappear beneath her. "No, impossible," she whispered. When did they even take that? But the nightmare was just beginning. Within an hour, social media erupted. Comments poured in. Another woman using her child to get money from a rich guy. She probably faked the illness. Is this why the CEO hasn't dated anyone in years? No one knew the truth, but the truth has never been what the crowd chases. While Elena was still trying to breathe, the community center director summoned her. "Elena, I'm so sorry," she began, her voice heavy. "The news is everywhere. We've received complaints from several parents. They don't want the center associated with a scandal." Elena clenched her fists. "I didn't do anything wrong. Someone set me up." "I believe you," the director said softly. "But I can't keep you here. You're suspended until this blows over." The first blow. That evening, as Elena carried Mia up the stairs of their old apartment building, the landlord stormed into the hallway. "Elena, I hate to do this, but the news about you is spreading. Tenants are worried paparazzi might come here. I have to raise your rent. Double." "Double?" Elena gasped. "I just lost my job. How am I supposed to pay that?" The landlord simply shrugged. "I have my own risks." The second blow. But the worst came 2 days later. Child Protective Services knocked on Elena's door. The agent spoke gently, but every word sliced into her. "We received an anonymous report claiming you're receiving illegal funds and cannot provide a stable environment for your daughter." "That's not true," Elena cried. "I didn't do anything wrong. I'm just trying to save my child." But the report was filed. They would continue monitoring. The third blow, one that could take away the most important thing in her life. After they left, Elena collapsed onto the floor, hands covering her face. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "If you want to keep Mia, stay away from Ethan Callaway. This is your first warning." Elena trembled violently. Her heart hammered. Who was doing this to her? Why her? The answer revealed itself later that afternoon. She noticed a black SUV parked near her building. For 2 days it followed her, to the store, the clinic, the grocery market. She caught glimpses of a man inside, phone pressed to his ear, but he never approached. One night, while walking Mia home, she heard footsteps behind her. When she turned, the SUV sped away. Fear seeped into every vein. Meanwhile, at Callaway Innovations, Ethan faced a different kind of assault. He read the headlines, saw the manipulated photos, heard the fabricated rumors. His eyes darkened. "Timothy," he said to the head of security, "find out who took the photo. Find out who's orchestrating this." 2 days later, the report landed on his desk. The name written on the first page froze him. Veronica Hale, PR mogul, former business partner, and his former fiancée. Ethan shut his eyes, forcing back the anger rising inside him. He understood immediately. A woman like Veronica never tolerated rejection. And now she had chosen Elena, a woman with no defenses, as her target. Wind howled against the glass outside, as if echoing the storm building inside him. Ethan whispered to himself, voice cold as steel, "Veronica, you've gone too far this time." Ethan barely slept that night. He sat in his dark office, the city lights reflecting faintly on his tense face through the glass. News about Elena was spreading like wildfire, and every cruel comment he read only fueled the quiet, simmering anger inside him. Elena didn't deserve this. She was simply trying to save her daughter. And yet, the world treated her like a fraud. Ethan clenched his jaw. He had to find out who was behind it. Timothy, the head of security, stepped into the office the next morning, a thick folder in his hands. "We traced the account, the device, and the IP used to send the photos to the press," he said. Ethan stood instantly. "Who was it?" Timothy set the file on the desk. "Veronica Hale." The name sliced through the air like a blade. For a moment, all the memories Ethan had tried to bury resurfaced. The arguments, the manipulation hidden beneath polished smiles, the way Veronica treated his reputation like a commodity, and the coldness that followed when he ended their engagement. Ethan's eyes hardened. She did this out of revenge. "That's not all," Timothy continued. "She hired someone to follow Elena and her daughter." Ethan gripped the edge of the desk until his knuckles turned white. "Does Elena know?" "Not yet. But we traced the plates of the black SUV she described. It's rented under Veronica's PR firm." A chill ran down Ethan's spine. The woman he had almost married had hired people to stalk a struggling mother and her sick child. It went beyond unethical. It was criminal. "What does she want?" Ethan asked, voice dropping like iron. Timothy shook his head. "Maybe she wants you back. Or maybe she wants to destroy anything that makes you look human." Ethan sat down slowly, his hands braced on his knees, his face shadowed with controlled fury. "Give me everything. Emails, messages, payments, surveillance. Everything connected to her." "And Elena?" Timothy asked. "Should we tell her?" Ethan fell silent for a few seconds. He pictured Elena's exhausted, frightened face, trying so hard to stay strong. She had suffered enough. "Telling her now will only terrify her more," he said quietly. "Let me deal with Veronica first." That afternoon, Ethan walked into Veronica Hale's high-rise office without an appointment. The receptionist paled, but didn't dare stop him. Veronica stood by the window when he entered. She wore an expensive suit, hair perfectly pinned, still carrying herself like someone convinced the world revolved around her. "Ethan," she greeted with a soft smile, as though they were old friends. "Coming here was the right decision. We need to talk." Without a word, Ethan dropped the folder onto her desk. Papers spilled out, emails to reporters, payments to a private investigator, long-distance photos of Elena and Mia. Veronica's smile stiffened. "I can explain?" "No need," Ethan cut in, his voice colder than Portland's winter night. "You stalked a single mother, a 3-year-old child. You tried to destroy their lives to soothe your bruised ego." Veronica lifted her chin, forcing a veneer of confidence. "Ethan, you're being dramatic. She's using you. Everyone can see that. Articles are everywhere. People think you're—" "The only thing I see," Ethan interrupted, "is that you're committing crimes." The air froze. "You wouldn't dare charge me," Veronica snapped. I know enough to take you down with me." Ethan met her gaze, his eyes sharp as steel. "Try me." For the first time, Veronica faltered. Ethan turned toward the door, pausing only to add, "You turned your spite into a weapon against innocent people, and this time you will answer for it." As the door shut behind him, Veronica's expression twisted, anger mixed with fear. That night, Ethan sat alone in his office, the case file open in front of him. He knew dealing with Veronica would be a battle. But for the first time since his wife's death, he felt something pushing him forward, not just justice, but something deeper. For Elena, for Mia. And silently he vowed, whatever it cost, he would protect them. The rumors, the accusations, the vicious articles about Elena spread faster each day, as if the entire city was shredding her story into sensational pieces for entertainment. Elena, no matter how hard she tried, couldn't stop the fire. Every morning she woke with the same dread, that someone might knock on her door and take Mia away. Ethan knew he could no longer stay in the shadows. He had to do the one thing he'd always avoided: confront the media. That morning, Portland's press swarmed the lobby of Callaway Innovations. Cameras, microphones, blinding lights, the atmosphere felt predatory. No one knew why Ethan suddenly called a press conference, but everyone sensed it had to do with the scandal-shaking social media. When Ethan stepped to the podium, the room fell silent. He didn't wear the usual untouchable expression of a CEO. His face was somber, his eyes steady, but carrying a deep exhaustion. "Thank you for coming," he began, his voice calm but sharp. "Today I want to address the false information circulating about me, and about a woman who does not deserve the attacks she's receiving." A wave of murmurs rippled through the room. Ethan continued. "First, I am not in any romantic relationship with Ms. Elena Ramirez. Any assumptions suggesting otherwise are false." Camera flashes exploded. "Second, the financial support for her daughter's medical care is a loan under contract. I am not funding, secretly supporting, or maintaining her as certain articles claim." He paused. "Third, and most importantly, Ms. Ramirez and her daughter are the targets of a malicious media campaign. Photos have been taken, edited, and distributed with the intention of causing harm." The atmosphere shifted instantly. Many reporters sensed something serious beneath the surface. Then Ethan delivered the final blow. "We have identified the individual responsible for coordinating this smear campaign. Evidence will be submitted to the authorities today." Chaos erupted. He hadn't spoken Veronica Hale's name, but veteran reporters knew Ethan wouldn't make such a statement unless he had irrefutable proof. A CEO announcing legal action live on air was unprecedented. Ethan ended the conference with a sentence that silenced the room. "Kindness is not weakness, and another person's dignity is not a weapon for revenge. I will not stand by and let injustice happen." He stepped away from the podium, leaving behind a sea of unanswered questions. That evening, when Elena watched the press conference on her old laptop, she went still. For the first time in weeks, she felt someone was truly standing with her, someone willing to speak the truth. She held Mia close, closed her eyes, and let a small, fragile hope settle into her tired heart. After Ethan's press conference, public opinion began to shift. The cruel comments subsided, replaced by messages of support for Elena and apologies from people who had judged her without knowing the truth. But even as the media storm quieted, Elena still faced a fear far greater than rumors: Mia's worsening condition. Her illness progressed faster than the doctors expected. Recently, Mia struggled to breathe at night and sometimes slept sitting up because lying down made her chest tighten. Elena barely slept, listening to each trembling breath. One morning, the doctor delivered the news. "We have an opening this week, If we wait longer, Mia's condition will be harder to control. Elena nodded silently. She had been waiting and fearing this moment for so long. On the day of surgery, Portland's sky hung low and gray, mirroring the heaviness in the hospital waiting room. Elena held Mia's small hand tightly as the nurse came to take her. Mia offered a faint smile, her dark eyes tired but brave. "Mama will be right here," Elena whispered, her lips trembling. Mia nodded. When the doors closed, Elena felt herself falling into emptiness. She sat down, hands clasped together, shaking uncontrollably. A figure approached and sat beside her. Ethan. He didn't say much. He simply placed a warm cup of tea in her hands. "You should drink something," he murmured. Elena stared at the cup for a long moment before answering, "You don't have to be here." "Maybe not," Ethan said, "but I want to be." They didn't speak after that. They just sat together, two people standing in the middle of a blizzard, finding balance in each other's presence. 2 hours passed, then 3, then 4. Elena began trembling, struggling to breathe as fear tightened around her chest. Ethan placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "Mia is a fighter," he said. "She'll make it through." Elena wanted to believe him. She desperately wanted to. When the doctor finally emerged, exhaustion lined his face, but his eyes revealed hope. "Elena, the surgery was successful." For a moment, Elena's mind went blank. Then tears burst from her eyes, spilling faster than she could wipe them away. She raised both hands to her mouth to muffle her sobs. Ethan stood, not to embrace her. He honored her boundaries, but stayed close enough that she didn't feel alone. "She'll need time to recover," the doctor said, "but the danger has passed." Elena nearly collapsed under the weight of relief. The burden she had carried for months dissolved in that single sentence. As they walked toward the recovery room, she turned to Ethan. "Thank you," she whispered. Ethan looked at her, something quiet and profound in his gaze. "Elena, you don't owe me anything. She survived because you never stopped fighting for her." But Elena knew the truth was larger. Without Ethan, Mia might not be alive. Seeing Mia resting peacefully after surgery, wrapped in wires and monitors, Elena placed a hand over her daughter's heart. A single tear fell, not from fear, but from hope. For the first time in months, the future wasn't darkness. It was a long road, but one they finally had a chance to walk. Mia recovered faster than any doctor had predicted. 3 days after the surgery, she could already sit up, offering a faint smile whenever Elena told her a story, or when Ethan placed a small toy beside her bed. Though her body was still fragile, her eyes had regained their brightness, a light Elena once thought she would never see again. One afternoon, while Mia slept, Elena stepped into the hallway to get some warm water. She found Ethan standing beside the vending machine, his expression distant, as if wandering back into the past. "Elena," he called when he noticed her, "there's something I want to tell you." His voice sounded different, gentle, yet weighted. They sat on the long bench facing the window, where the sunset spread a thin layer of gold across the tiled floor. "There's something I should have told you a long time ago," Ethan began. "Before Sophia passed away, I had invested a large sum into medical research for the rare illness she suffered from. I begged the scientists to find a way, any way, to save her." Elena looked at him, seeing in his eyes a pain that had never truly healed. "When Sophia died, that research was nearly abandoned. I didn't have the strength to keep following it," Ethan continued, "but a small team of doctors kept going, and it was from that very research that the surgical method used to save Mia today was developed." Elena froze. "You're saying?" "Yes," Ethan nodded. "Part of that surgery exists because of Sophia, because I tried to save her, and now it saved your daughter." Elena lifted her hand to her mouth, eyes widening. Two lives, seemingly unrelated, had actually crossed paths long before they ever met. But Ethan wasn't finished. "There's something else," he said softly. "Years ago, I quietly donated to a fund that supports families of firefighters who died in the line of duty. I just wanted to do something, to honor Sophia, because her father was a firefighter." Elena went still. Memories of her late husband, Marco Ramirez, rose like a warm shadow from another life. "Marco," she breathed shakily. "He was the firefighter who died in that Mississippi District fire 8 years ago." Ethan nodded, his voice low. "I donated to that fund, and the records show your family was one of the recipients." Elena couldn't speak. Her heart pounded violently inside her chest. She had always believed her first meeting with Ethan was at the grocery store. But the truth was, he had helped her long before she ever knew he existed. Not out of pity, not out of obligation, but because his loss had unknowingly touched hers. Elena lowered her gaze, hands clasped tightly. Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Ethan looked out the window where the sky was sinking into purple. "Because I never wanted you to feel like you owed me anything," he said quietly. "I didn't want whatever connection we have to be colored by fate or obligation." He turned back to her. "I just wanted the truth to be told before we take any step forward. You deserve to know." Elena exhaled, feeling as though the thousands of shattered pieces in her life were finally fitting together into a larger, deeper picture. A picture in which two people's sorrow had guided them to the right place at the right moment, to save a small, precious life. She looked down at her hands, then back at Ethan. "Maybe," Elena whispered. "We were brought into each other's lives, not just because of Mia." Ethan slowly reached out his hand, not touching her, only placing it close enough for her to choose whether to move toward him or away. "Will you let me walk with you and Mia on this new journey?" he asked. Not a confession of love, not a rosy promise, just a request, honest and profound. Elena looked at his hand. For 8 years she had lived in darkness. She never believed her life could open in another direction. And yet, standing before Ethan, she realized pain wasn't an ending. It was only the beginning of a new road. She placed her hand in his. No trembling, no hesitation. "Ethan," she whispered, "you've been walking with us long before I knew it. If I turned away now, wouldn't it mean denying the very journey we've already shared?" A smile broke across Ethan's face, soft, but enough to melt the last piece of ice around his heart. "Then," he murmured, "we walked together."